Happy Halloween, everyone. Fina here from Fina Reads. Today with my October wrap-up and bi-weekly book ramblings. And we have less to talk about than normal because October was a rather slow reading month, if I say so. Which is fine, you know, sometimes you just read less. There was a lot to do at work, you know, the usual being an adult stuff. But let's briefly talk about that, what I've done in October, how many books I read, how many pages I read, quick summary, and then we talk about the books in particular that I read over the last 2 weeks and what I'm planning for the next 2. Alright, a little bit stats on the side. So far in October, it's not fully done yet, but right this second I've read 1,669 pages, which is about 1,000 pages to up to 1,500 pages less than what I usually read. So it was a really slow month, which translates into 6 books, but I also read 350 pages from 2 books that I've started. One I'm hoping to finish by the end of this month, so then I will be at around 2,000-ish pages at the end of the day with 7 books. Out of the 6 books that I've definitely finished so far, 3 of those are 5-star reads. So while it was a slow month, it was a really good reading month. I don't think I've had that many 5-star reads in the last month. Then I had 1 4-star read and 2 3-star reads. Majority were physical books, just one of them was an audiobook. It was a pretty mixed bag when it comes to female authors, and then unfortunately, except for 1 book, all of the authors were from North America and from the US, so I didn't do a good job when it comes to diverse reading this month. But again, even that is okay, because it's about having fun reading and it's not a competition. Briefly summarizing this month's books that I've already talked with you about, and I will be linking the book ramblings where I mentioned those up here. So The AI Who Loved Me, which was the audiobook short story, like a 5-hour listen to, was kind of fun. Nothing too memorable now a month later that I'm thinking about. It was quirky. That's what I remember. It was kind of a quirky romance story. Definitely made me flag the author as someone I should check out and see if there are other fun, lighthearted romance stories from her. The next ones that I also already talked about is Empire in Black and Gold, which is book 1 of the Shadows of the Apt series of Adrian Tchaikovsky. You've probably seen it a lot around BookTube lately, and I also did a separate review on that. That was my 4-star read. And then I joined the buddy read over at Michael Knipp's Patrons, which was Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and I did not expect that. That was a 5-star read. It was so good, so creepy, and yes, I definitely want to read more from Neil Gaiman in the near future. It was such a good book. And then the other one that I started talking about in the last book ramblings, but I was still in the middle of, was Getaway by Zoe Stage. And while I really enjoy Zoe Stage's writing, that one was only a 3-star read for me. So I like Wonderland, the book that I read before Getaway from her. I like that better. So that was a 3-star read. And then since the last bi-weekly book ramblings, what I've read since then, well, I finished Getaway, of course. Then I read the Angela Merkel biography, which was awesome. I gave it 5 stars. Again, we'll talk about it in a little bit. The other one was a short story where I can't talk much about yet because it's not published yet, but I really hope you'll get your hands on that one soon because that was a 5-star short story for me. It was really amazing. And then the only things that are still open are A Game of Thrones, which I started as a buddy read with the Fantasy Network. Like, that whole group is reading the whole A Song of Ice and Fire series, 1 book a month. And in October, it was A Game of Thrones, which is book 1. And I probably won't finish it in October, but I want to get at least halfway through and then finish that out pretty early in November. And then the other book that I started that I'm still in the middle of that I hope to finish actually before the end of the month is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. Let's talk about the October books that I've read in the last 2 weeks in a bit more detail. So I finished out Getaway, and it has been an interesting ride. I have to say that. So the 3 stars, what I gave him for was mainly really the writing style. Zoe Stage has a really good way of creating scenes and describing the environment on what does it feel like to be, in this case, the Grand Canyon. And it's about 2 sisters and one of their high school friends going backpacking in the Grand Canyon. They planning to do that for a week, and then just things, go south. And while I didn't like the plot as much, like the thing that happens in the Grand Canyon was kind of, it was okay, but it felt a bit rushed at times. And I don't know, I found the pacing of the book a little bit off, because the first half of the book is just prep for going into the Grand Canyon, and then the second half is, well, going into the Grand Canyon and then the thing happening. It felt a little bit too much preparation, like setting the stage on why they're going to the Grand Canyon. So from a story and plot perspective, not my favorite one. It's not a bad plot, it's just not what I would have expected from Zoe Stage. And I think that's why generally a lot of people that read this book and read others by Zoe Stage feel similarly. So it kind of matches with the majority of people who rated it on Goodreads. But her writing is beautiful. The way she describes, again, your surroundings and everything, the way she explains the characters and their motivations. She is an incredible writer, and I will definitely continue reading her books. It's fine. Not every book from one author that has to be my favorite, but I'm still glad I read it. The next one then was a nonfiction book, which was the Angela Merkel biography. Again, I did a review on that, so I'll link that up there. And another 5-star read. This was such an incredible biography. Katie Martin, who's the author of the biography, The Chancellor, did a really great job digging into the life of Angela Merkel and doing her analysis of, what's going on. Why is she the person she is? Where's she coming from? How has her past shaped her? And all of those kind of things, while at the same time including a lot of really great information about the history of that time that Angela Merkel was Chancellor in Germany. Great book, great biography, great writing style, very informative. And then the two books that I'm still in the middle of are Game of Thrones. I haven't made much progress on a Game of Thrones, maybe 100 pages since the last biweekly book ramblings. Not because I don't like the book or anything, just mainly last weekend I had to last minute drive somewhere, so I was basically gone the entire weekend and didn't have a chance to read at all. Now that I'm into Game of Thrones a bit more again, I realize why my reaction back then actually was to say this was a good book, but I probably won't reread it again, and here I am rereading it. Which is good though, because I actually like to have that experience again and go through some of the scenes again. Generally speaking, what I really like is that A Game of Thrones is an epic fantasy series that is incredibly accessible. So what is so fascinating for me about the series in general is that George R. R. Martin is capable of making it so easy to understand on what's going on, packing such a big story with so many characters into a book series. It is an incredible book. The last time I read it, it was a 4-star read for me, and if it continues this way for me, it's probably going to end up again in that 4-star read category. The other book that I've started is Foundation, and I'm just, 40 pages or something in. Again, I didn't know much about the book. I just knew classic sci-fi, that my dad loved it. He read it in his teens, and he really enjoyed Isaac Asimov in general. It seems to be an interesting series. I mean, the beginning was kind of already interesting, like just how the main character enters the planet and the setup of the planet, and then that kind of conspiracy going on right from the beginning. And I was thinking like, okay, tell me more. What's going on here? Why is this happening? So I'm excited to see how it continues. I hope it's not going to be one of those books where there's a lot of like hard science and conversation about that hard science, because it has some of those elements that it could go into this direction. But we'll see. We shall see. I will not worry about this right now. I will just enjoy the ride as much as I can. And then we go from there. You can definitely tell that Foundation is an older sci-fi book by the way it is written. So the sentence structure and the words used is definitely very prevalent. Now, after all the rambling about my last 2 weeks and how October went, let's just briefly talk about the next 2 weeks. Again, I just put out my November TBR, so you can definitely check that out and see what type of books I want to read throughout November. Given that I'm still a little bit in a slower mood and I need to get back into things, I try to keep it at a reasonable level. We'll see how it turns out. So far, usually from the TBRs that I put together, I read about a little bit more than half of the books that I'm actually planning on reading. We shall see. So, but after Foundation, after I'm done with Game of Thrones, which will probably take me the next week, I want to start with Dragonfly Falling. Although I might actually take a pause with a short story. I just got the short fiction box. It's a new box. It's existing short stories, but it's kind of newly packaged. A short fiction box by Stephen King. And there are two stories that really interest me, which is, one is The Mist and the other one is Apt Pupil. And The Mist is probably the one that I'm more interested in, first of all, because it's about a group of people being stuck in a grocery store because they're surrounded by a poisonous mist or something. And all of these people, you know, it's a psychological thing again. The stuff that I really, really like about Stephen King, where those people can't leave the grocery store, so there's tension, right? And then they're probably getting aggressive at one point, and then you're in people's heads, I hope at least. But just from a premise perspective, this is a Stephen King book that I will probably really enjoy, so I'm excited to read this one. And then, as I said, Dragonfly Falling. That's a big one, so that will probably take me a couple of days again to get through. But it's book 2 in the Shadows of the Apt series, and I definitely want to continue with this. I want to know, how will our students, you know, experience the world? What will they do? What can they do with the way the book ended? And I'm just like so excited about seeing this. And yeah, I just probably need a break because Game of Thrones is such a massive book. I probably need a short break, palate cleanser, like short stories are great for that, and then I can dive right in. Maybe it was not so smart to read a Game of Thrones or a Song of Ice and Fire while I'm reading Shadows of the Apt. 2 massive fantasy series. This is going to be interesting. Anyway, so that's what I'm planning for at the moment. That's what's going on in my reading life right now. Tell me in the comments, what are you going to read in the next 2 weeks? And how did your October go? Do you usually make plans for your reading months? And if you do plans, did they go over well in October, or was it a complete disaster? And then don't forget to subscribe so you can see future videos and we can talk more about books in future videos. And then I hope I see you soon with my next video. Till then, have a great rest of your day. Bye.